Welcome to another podcast of Jurors in Disguise. My name is Mary Rose Peterson, and I own Covert Ops Jury Investigations. Tonight, I have honored guests with me, which you can see. Their names are Jerry and Liz. They are the grandparents who hired us to work on their grandson Brody's case back in 2021. And this is an emotional case. They all are, as you've watched other podcasts, you know that they all are for me. But this one is especially difficult because Brody was a kid and falsely accused by a kid, and then framed by the state attorney's office and others that this should never have happened. And Brody is still in prison. So I fast forward to that. He's in prison. His case was in the trial was in 2021, October of 2021. And we were hired right after trial to investigate the jury. I have actually two reports that we wrote. Within a few weeks. We were able to uncover evidence that one of the jurors, Travis Stevick, I'm assuming that's how you say his name, might be Stevick, I'm not sure, but he was not honest during the voir dire. And I just want to say from the beginning, Broderick, aka Brody, was falsely accused and wrongfully convicted. There is not only no basis to these charges, but it's laughable, except for Brody's in prison, but it's laughable that anybody could even try to believe anything this accuser said. I will say that the attorney in this case, which I have no trouble talking about, and I think Jerry and Liz might have a few words in a few minutes too, but was Bryant Camerino, excuse me. Bryant Camerino. How did y'all find out about us? Did he refer you to us?
Yes, he did.
Okay, I thought he did. I thought he did.
Yeah.
Okay. He told you to call us, and so you did. And then it just went sideways. I don't know what happened, but in looking, I had never been introduced to Mr. Camerino, and I actually Googled him and I found that he wrote a book called The Verdict, and on the back, which is you will find is quite ironic compared to what actually happened in Brody's case. But he wrote this, and on the back, a cover, it says, "The verdict examines the psychological impact the trial has on the jurors, as well as the physical and mental exhaustion the lawyers have to endure. But the emotional impact of the trial also extends to society at large. After months of trial preparation, several weeks of testimony, and after many days of sequestered deliberation, the trial ends with a verdict that is certain to shock the community." Okay, so that's the book that he wrote. So you would think that this person understood or understands the seriousness of the jury and the finality of their decision. In the report, I outlined some of the things that were said during the voir dire by the judge and the state attorney. For example, the judge said to the prospective jurors, "Will each of you raise your right hands, please?" And then the clerk administered the oath. This is before they ever even began talking. The clerk gave them an oath that said, "Do each of you swear or affirm that you will answer truthfully all questions asked of you as prospective jurors?" Juror Stevick was one of those that said yes. Okay. All right. You just took an oath. Then the judge said, "What we're looking for is 6 of you who can sit fairly and impartially and take in the evidence and render a just verdict based on the evidence." So the purpose of what we're doing here, and I've already said it several times, is to pick a fair and impartial jury for this case. You fill out the questionnaires. We've already asked you some preliminary questions in person. That's all part of trying to get at whether you are going to be the best fit for a juror in this case. If there are any issues you don't feel comfortable answering these questions or talking about, we'll speak in private. We're not trying to pry. We're not trying to unnecessarily get into your personal business. I promise you all the questions I ask and the lawyers ask are to get at whether or not you are a good fit as a fair and impartial juror for this case. I appreciate your candor, blah, blah, blah. State attorney, same thing. As the judge said, what we're looking for is the best juror suited for this case. You may be a great juror for a different type of case, but perhaps not this one. And it's just one of those things that we like to flesh out. Okay, on and on, questions on and on and on and on. They talk about, do you have any experience with these type of charges? Anybody and not a good fit? Can you be fair and impartial? Do you have any experience with the criminal justice system? Blah, 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 blah. We did find that he was a nurse in pediatrics. This was an article that was written with him in mind. There were other people quoted in the article, but I'm just going to read the little bit of what was said about him. The title of the article is More Employers Accepting of Tattoos, Piercings in the Workplace. This was in July of 2013. So the title here says, When Travis Stevick goes to work, he wears his heart on his sleeve, literally. For the 34-year-old pediatric nurse, his body is a canvas, and the tattoos are all his metaphors of his life. Along his left arm, there's a tiger and cherry blossoms on his forearm and a koi fish on his upper arm. This is mostly what is exposed when he wears his scrubs to work. Stevick has 20 tattoos in all so far, from his arms, legs, back, and chest. He plans on getting more too. Ironically, he does immunizations for children. Now keep in mind, Brody was falsely accused of a sex offense against a child. Do you think this is an appropriate juror with what you know just so far? No, no, absolutely not.
Plus his arrest record you didn't mention.
Yeah, I'm getting to that, but thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to get to that. The tattoos are not only a calming mechanism for them, he said, but some children tell me what they want, that they want tattoos one day. He said it kind of gets their mind off whatever they're here for. If they're not feeling well, if they have to get a shot, something like that, and they just take a second and look at my tattoos, we relate a little bit. So it helps, I think. Okay, again, inappropriate juror for this jury. Point. During voir dire, he was singled out by the state attorney and the defense attorney and said all kinds of things that weren't true. In fact, here's what go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say, and one of the things he said, he had been in court as an expert witness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that
it's impossible.
Yeah, not true.
The other thing is, as that voir dire was going on, voir dire, whatever you want to
Whatever,
call it, Brody was sitting there with a spreadsheet of all the jurors. And on that spreadsheet, number 22, Stivic, he wrote deputy question mark. And he did not want him on the jury.
No.
Pointed that out to Camerino as we sat behind him. And Camerino said, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, as I have intimated in other podcasts and in reports, it certainly appears that somebody was working in cahoots and were in tandem with this juror. You know, he said he was a sheriff's deputy. And in my report, I said that I called the Allen County Sheriff's Office where he's lived from 2005 and 6. I spoke with Jesse Andrews in the Human Resources Department. She conducted a thorough search of their employment records and found no Travis, James, Stevick anywhere in their system, which she said even predates 2005. Okay, so liar, liar, pants on fire. That wasn't true. He also admitted or said that he didn't have any strong feelings towards law enforcement, yet we found 6 different articles talking about his grandfather, Waldo Stevick, who had been a highway patrolman with the Ohio State Patrol, then a police officer with Lima PD, and then he retired from the force. And after that, he did all kinds of talks all around the country or the county, excuse me. He stayed in the Fraternal Order of Police Associates, and he stressed the importance of preserving clues at the scene of a crime. So then what was key, though, here is that according to records, Juror Stevick grew up living with his mother in his grandparents' home and was almost 12 when his grandfather died. So he grew up with his grandfather talking and telling stories, and he may have even accompanied him. Who knows? But I think that given that level of being steeped in law enforcement as a family member, to say that you don't have strong feelings would not be true. Of course you have strong feelings. He was asked that why he left law enforcement. He said, I went into nursing. And then he also, we noticed on his nursing application that what you talked about, he admitted some of the things that he was actually under prosecution for on his nursing certificate. Now, remember, during voir dire, he said what? DUI. Okay, yeah, DUI and disorderly conduct and menacing in another case and intoxication and another DUI and reckless operation in another case and intoxication and criminal damaging in another case. So DUI was an understatement. I think he underplayed quite a few things. Found on his Facebook page, he was a member of the Justice for Families in Northwest Ohio. This was prior to Brody's case, as you know. And this page talks about those being accused of sex crimes against children. It also is filled with photos on the subject of sex crimes against children. We attached a few exhibits, but were, of course, hundreds of reasons. Again, should never have been on this jury at all. So you were at jury selection at the voir dire. I would like to hear what your takeaway was.
Mr. Stivic, I would prefer not to have him too. I understand. I agreed with Brody.
Mhm.
This is a deputy,
Right.
and it. I didn't understand how many times he'd been arrested. Learned he'd been arrested 15 times and convicted 8 times,
Right.
as opposed to what he said, arrested once.
Right.
Didn't say anything about the conviction.
Right.
Uh, they kind of glossed over him and accepted him. But I would want to point out that during the voir dire, one of the women, and there were several women on there,
Mhm.
had indicated that she was easily influenced. Now, understanding that, and then knowing that here's somebody that claims he's an expert deputy that testified with expertise in
Mhm.
this type of crime,
Mhm.
would go into the jury room and tell that jury, especially somebody who can be influenced,
Mhm.
that, oh yeah, I was an expert in this case.
Mhm.
And in the
Any
back,
case.
yeah, in other cases, and
Mhm.
in the background, knowing he belongs to this organization that persecutes pedophiles,
Right.
and he wants to get his name on that list
Yeah.
of, of getting convictions.
Yeah. He thinks
So,
he's a vigilante hero.
yeah, he was a vigilante. On top of that, we learned that he had a case that very same day of the trial that
Mhm.
was his case in Hillsborough County, and he had that case continued so he could attend
Wow.
this case.
Wow. So
Uh,
he
uh,
was there to curry favor with the state.
yep,
Mhm. And if you, we know that prosecutors and defense attorneys are members of the same clubs. They frequent things together. They go to dinner together. They are friends. Like we've talked about, it is a courthouse. It's a house,
yeah,
and you're walking into their house, and that includes defense attorneys. I'm not saying all defense attorneys do that, but they work deals. I know that Martin's attorney and the prosecutor were in the prosecutor's office on a Thursday night talking about what kind of deal they were going to make. So I know that it's a lot of backroom wink, wink, nod, nod. You give me this guy, I'll give you that guy. I'm not saying that's what Mr. Camerino did, but what happened after we submitted that first report, I'd like you to talk about that because we were under the impression that because Mr. Camerino had sent you to us, that he was going to jump on this report and use that to put a pause, or as I like to say, throw a monkey wrench into the whole system of stopping the sentencing. And our goal, of course, was to stop Brody from having to go to prison. It was to cause a mistrial because we showed gross, grievous misconduct by one of these jurors. That was the whole point. Was all right, I expected him to go in there, guns blazing, so to speak, and shoot him up like a Western and say, hold on, time out, time out. You can't sentence this kid. It's a mistrial. We've got all of this on this juror. He clearly misrepresented himself. He had no business being on there. And we had other jurors who said they were easily influenced. No, no. But that's not what happened, is it?
No.
No.
As a matter of fact, I do know as we sat there, we were sitting right behind him. As he questioned each one of the witnesses, he never used the depositions. And he didn't have a second to help him, even though I offered, let me sit here and read these
Right.
depositions as you're asking the questions.
Mhm.
He refused. He says, I got this. I got it under control. He did not have the ability to challenge the depositions because he never read them.
And I had asked him when I did my deposition, I said, I want to read it before it's signed. And he said,
Right.
no, we're waiving that. I said, then I want a copy of it. This was the day I did the deposition.
Mhm.
I asked him for years before the trial for a
Mhm.
copy of that deposition. He never got me a copy of my deposition.
No,
So when I was called in court as the witness for the defense, I had no idea because I had never seen the deposition
Right.
what the prosecutor was talking about. And when she said to me, well, you want to look at this and tell me what you mean? It wouldn't have mattered
So
at
you
that
were
moment.
blindsided.
I was so blindsided, but like I say, I had to pay for somebody to get me that deposition to actually know what she was talking about because Bryant never provided it for me, even though he was asked. In fact, he informed me to stop calling his office and bothering his girls. He would take care of getting me that deposition,
he never did.
and he never did.
About that, we are going to have a mock trial with Brody, and Bryant refused.
He kept promising us that he would. I'll
Yeah,
get to that. Don't worry. I'll prepare Brody. I'll get to a mock trial and he'll understand what questions are going to be expected of him and this kind of things. Well, when he decided not to prep him, Brody didn't know what to do because, he had no idea what kind of action that
Right.
was going to come. And then he had sat there and seen the way the prosecution
Mhm.
attacked me.
Mhm.
And I think that scared him.
Sure.
He did not want to do it because he was not prepared for what was going to come
yeah.
at all.
Sure. One of the things that the state attorney provided was a map of the grounds. You want me to mention the location?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, the map of Busch Gardens for 2016. That's what she was supposed to provide. Well, she covered up the date on that map and provided a new map, a current map. And
Mm.
Liz looked at it and said, this doesn't look like the same map. At that point, our attorney, Camerino, should have said, I object.
Right.
Let me see this map.
Right.
And
Right.
she says, what makes you think this is not a map from 2016? And I said, there are rides on this map that were not there in 2016. I have been a pass holder of Busch Gardens for many, many years.
Right.
So I know what the park looks like. And none of
Right.
these rides here, or here were there until recently. And she got angry and she grabbed that map literally out of my hand.
Yeah, and she turned around and made comments about Mrs. Weatherspoon doesn't know what she's talking about. She can't identify things on the map that are there. It really should
It's
have been
humiliating.
embarrassing.
It's humiliating. And
We gave Bryant pictures of the day we were at Busch Gardens, and Jerry had gone on those pictures and put the meta date and time each picture was taken.
Mhm.
Gave it to Bryant, and he gave the prosecution pictures without that information. And Jerry said, you were going to use those pictures. So the prosecution said, these pictures could have been taken anytime. We have no idea except her word. How do we know these were taken on August 20th? It's only her word, and you can't prove that because she doesn't, she's not telling the truth, because the prosecution found that it was a different date than August 20th. And they went a number of times, meaning me. And so it could have been taken anytime. But Bryant had the pictures with all that information on it and refused to present them to the jury.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. I want you to tell what you're comfortable telling about what Brody was charged with, because that the fact that the accuser got the stories all mixed up, and that combined with what you just described, where that's blatant prosecutorial misconduct that was not objected to by.
Yeah, Marina.
And why not? Why not? So
Okay.
tell everyone what you're comfortable saying, because some of this matters going forward.
The first interview with
you want to see what he's charged with?
he was charged with lewd and lascivious act on a minor, I guess, or a person under the age of 12.
Right.
Okay, the first story that she told was it happened, her grandmother sent her to a bathroom with Brody. And she says, the accuser says, I was wearing a one-piece jumpsuit that had buttons and zipper in the back. And of course, I couldn't undo those. And she showed the person she was talking to from the Mary Lee House investigator that, here, see my neck? This is what I had. So when Brody unzipped and unbuttoned those and he took them off, he touched my chest.
That's what she's claiming.
That's what she's claiming. That's
how old was she then?
7.
Let me back up a second. The first time she was interviewed by the child advocate for the sheriff's department, she said nothing happened.
She said, no, he never did anything.
Nothing ever happened.
She told him twice that
it was an in-depth interview with the child advocate from the sheriff's department. We thought, well, nothing did happen.
Right.
Then
after she went home, her mother was not supposed to talk to her. Obviously, her mother filled her with all kinds of these questions about things that never occurred.
Right. That's when April stopped. And then she got on the phone to the deputies and said, she's changed her story. He did touch her inappropriately, and I want him arrested. She described 2 different outfits. And she said it all happened 3 months before her birthday. And her birthday's in June. So the police department said it happened April 1st.
Yeah.
That's where they came up with their original date.
Now, here's something that Camerino should have done, because we told him to. Busch Gardens keeps a record of attendance and a fingerprint record of attendance.
Yep.
And we told him he wasn't there that date.
Right.
He was only there one date. And it wasn't April 1st, it was August. And so
that's quite a difference from April to August.
Yeah, and so we said, just get the records and it'll show proof. And Camerino refused. He says it's up to the sheriff's department to do that. Well, the sheriff's department didn't do that. The other thing was it was raining on the day they were actually there in August. And they actually have pictures of the rain outside.
With the time on it.
With the date, time, and everything. And the location was then changed to be in a first aid station outside the restaurant.
Yeah, that came up during the oral arguments. Yeah.
The first aid station has a doorbell when you go in, and a nurse meets you, and you have to sign in. The sheriff's department didn't collect any of that data.
And neither did Brian.
Neither did Brian.
I took our tickets, mine and Brody's tickets, to Busch Gardens, and they pulled up the dates. Those tickets came through the park.
Mm-hmm.
I gave the dates to Bryant. I said, as you can see,
No, not only those tickets, all your
I
history.
gave him all the tickets where Brody had been there because I
Mm-hmm.
have them all. I said, you can see by the dates, this is the ticket he used in August.
Mm-hmm.
That's the date, the first time they show him in that park in 2016. He
Wow.
said, well, he could have gone in under a different name. I
That's
said,
why we knew Bryant was not on our side.
no,
What do
he
you
could
what do
not
you think
because
happened? What do you have any idea what went horribly wrong with him?
Here's an after fact. Bryant and the state attorney went to Rachel's office afterwards to find out what is the status of the case and what do you plan on doing. Rachel and Mr. O'Brien at the office had
Mhm.
indicated they've never had a prosecuting
No,
or the other defense attorney come in and ask that question.
they
no.
didn't talk to Rachel. They just talked to Mr. O'Brien, and
Yeah.
he said, that's Rachel's case. It's her, whatever she's doing.
Right,
And so they wanted to talk to Rachel, and she was away on another trial or
right,
something.
right.
I have a feeling that Brian was in cahoots, if you want to use that word,
Yeah,
with the state attorney.
I
that's
will
one of my
say,
favorite words.
one of the other things, Bryant tried his best to tell Brody, go ahead and take a plea deal.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead and take a plea deal. When Brody said, no, I'm innocent, I'm not taking a plea deal, we're still going through this trial. Samantha's grandmother testified, and I only read this in the transcript. I wasn't allowed to be in court.
right.
But the
I'm
prosecutor,
gonna stop just for a second. That's a key tactic. They leave the family outside sitting on the benches or out in the hallway because they're going to call you as a witness. And 9 times out of 10, they don't ever call them as a witness. They just don't want them in there because then you would see all the shenanigans going on.
yeah,
Yeah. And I
Okay.
was in there. I asked him to be there because I
Yeah.
was with them when they went to Busch Gardens.
right.
Right.
Well,
Okay, Liz, go ahead. Sorry.
one of the things that really broke my heart, to be honest, Brody being arrested, but Janet Franceschi, April or Samantha's grandmother, that she was there with us at Busch Gardens. When the prosecution asked her, how well do you know the defendant, Mr. Karchowski? She said on the witness stand under oath, I don't really know him. I've only met him a couple of times. She has known Brody since he was 2.5 years old,
Yeah.
went to dinner with us, spent time with him, with me,
Mhm.
ever since he was 2.5 years old.
Mhm.
And yet she sat there on that stand and says, I don't really know him. I've only met him a couple of times. So when I read that, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that she sat there and lied like that. But we had been friends
Mhm.
since for what, 43 years before this happened.
Wow.
And her to say, like I say, she'd known Brody from when he was a little toddler and used
She
to come.
loved Brody. She
She
did.
did. She
Yeah,
would
she
invite
loved
him
him.
over to her house to have dinner
Mhm.
if she was fixing something special and Jerry and I were going out to dinner, say with family or somebody else, and
Mhm.
Brody would say, I don't want to go. And Janet would say, I'll fix dinner. He can come have dinner with us. And
Oh,
he
he
did.
did. He was 18 when he was accused, from what I
Yeah.
can tell.
He was
He
born in
wasn't quite
97.
19. Right. He turned 19 a few months later.
Yeah.
And just so everyone can keep in mind, he's 28 now.
Yeah.
And according to the DOC, when he gets out, if that date is correct, he'll be 50,
Right.
50 years old
And
for,
we'll be gone.
He'll be,
for something that no one could prove.
Yeah.
It's uh,
it could be proven. It just wasn't.
Actually, what's
right.
kind of amazing, we have so much evidence that it didn't occur.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. You can't prove that it did, but you
Yeah.
have 1,000 things to show that it couldn't have.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely couldn't have happened.
In Camerino, we told him, says he was sitting in college. I've got evidence showing him sitting in a classroom in college on the day they're charging him with. He said, well, it's on or about. They could pick any date.
Right.
I said,
Right.
why don't they actually pick the day that he was at Busch Gardens?
Right. That would make sense. Thank you for watching another podcast of Jurors in Disguise. Until next time, I pray that you will like and subscribe And remember, the courtrooms may be silent, but we won't be. We will speak up, we will speak out, and we will always speak the truth. Thank you and God bless.